Okay, hi everyone. So this video is going to be me talking about my favorite album from each of the groups I collect. To make this video so it has, I guess, not so much filler in it, I'm only going to be talking about groups that have a decent discography size. So what I mean by that is basically if they have more than 2 albums, if a group just has 1 album, I'm not going to talk about them. Or say a group does have 2 releases but I don't really have much to say about either, I'm not going to include those groups. So if you see any group missing, just know that that is the reason why they're not here. I just don't want to sit here and try to come up with stuff to say when I don't really have anything to say. So yeah, we can get started. So the first group I'm going to talk about is CLC. So here is number 1. So yeah, this is my favorite CLC album. It's gone back and forth over the years. For the longest time I said that Refresh is my favorite album, and I think that would probably be number 2. If I were to rank right now, it'd probably go number 1 as 1, Refresh is number 2, and Crystyle is number 3. Number 1, it's just so incredibly good. It's everything that is good about CLC in one album, and it's the kind of music that I've been wanting from them for so long, and it's just the perfect culmination of everything that is good about CLC. I don't know, they finally with this album found something that I felt was really them. I mean, No isn't my favorite title track from them, but all of the B-sides on this album kind of make up for that. Show is their best song, hands down. And let's see if the track list is on the outside of this. Like It is so great. I Need You is weirdly all in English, not something you'd expect from CLC really, since they only really have one prominently English speaking member. Breakdown, so good. It's just every single song is really, really good. They're different, but it's still the same kind of style, so it's cohesive. And it's just so wonderful. I've been kind of raving about this album ever since it came out over a year ago, but I mean, it deserves to be yelled about. So the next group we'll talk about is Brave Girls. So Brave Girls are one of my alt girl groups, and they've been in alt this entire time purely because I love their music. I love everything about their music. I don't know if anyone's ever noticed, but I don't really have a Brave Girls bias, never really have, but it's the quality of their music is so just insanely good that it's hard not to love them so much. I think this was the first comeback I ever had with Brave Girls, so it's special to me in that sense, but also musically this album is really good. You might expect me to choose Rollin' for this. That album is really, really good, but also if you take a look at this track list, so High Heels, between High Heels and Rollin', I would say definitely Rollin' is the better title track, but the B-sides on this album are so good. Help Me and Whatever are 2 of my favorite B-sides of all time. I just love those songs so much. And track number 4, it's different than Help Me and Whatever, but it's still really good. And then obviously Deepened, track number 5, just again one of my favorite songs. So this whole thing, it's really, really good. With this in comparison to the Rollin' album, there's 4 songs on that album, one of them being a remix of High Heels, so it's the track list has less substance to it, so I feel overall this album is better, if you take all things considered. I truly love this album though. It really makes me miss OT7 Brave Girls, but I love Brave Girls as they are now. I love Brave Girls as they were then, and I love Brave Girls as they were in 2012. I love Brave Girls. I just love everything about Brave Girls. Yeah, this album is definitely my favorite. So the next album and group we'll talk about is Dia's Love Generation. So I think I will always just have to say that this is my favorite Dia album, mostly because I don't think I've felt the way I felt when this album came out since it came out. I don't know, it's really hard to explain because just everything about this album is so perfect to me. It's one of my favorite K-pop albums of all time. There's just so many different aspects to it that I love. So on this album in particular, so there's 4 different versions of this album, all of which basically have different songs on them, so it all kind of culminates into one full album, even though this is technically a mini album. Considering where I was in my life when this album came out, it was everything that I could have ever possibly asked for. It was just something that made me feel very happy and excited about what I was doing. Yeah, just this whole album, it makes me feel really happy and just pure happiness. I feel not a lot of albums can do that. So this album definitely has a way that it just makes me feel different than a lot of other albums ever do. But yeah, so some of my favorite songs on this album are You're Different, Kiss Me is a really good one, Look from one of the units, and Just One Bite from the other unit, and also Paradise. This whole album, I don't know, it's just really, really good, and from start to finish, it is just my everything. I love this album with my whole entire heart. Next we can talk about IZ*ONE. So this is IZ*ONE's Bloom Eyes. This album really kind of changed the game for IZ*ONE for me. I was more of a really casual fan of IZ*ONE before this came out, but once this was announced, I gradually got more and more interested in IZ*ONE, and once this came out and I actually heard the whole album, it kind of put IZ*ONE at a whole different level, just because I think the quality of the music on this album is so good. It's like the album is like as a whole a step up from anything they've done before. They've had good songs on their albums in the past, but it's never been anything like this. I definitely think this is one of their most cohesive releases, and some of their best songs are on this album. Yeah, now since this album's release, I've fallen more in love with IZ*ONE, and just seeing more of what they can do kind of made that happen. I think the track list on this is a little bit more diverse than their past albums, and that's what makes it great. Like, you can see more of what IZ*ONE are capable of doing, and I'm thankful that they got a full-length album because this is just what we needed. So next we can talk about ITZY. It's Icy. So I've been a fan of ITZY since their debut. So I will admit to you, on first listen of their debut song, I hated it, but the song really grew on me and became my favorite song of 2019. So I just have grown to love ITZY a lot over the past year and a half ish that they've been a thing, and this album it's really, really good. I can't say that their It's Me album is my favorite out of their two, just because I think even though there's only 2 B-sides plus remixes of their past single, I think that this has a lot more replay value, and the songs on this are just a lot more fun for me in particular. The album that they put out this year, their It's Me album, it's really good, but I think this one is better just because as a whole it speaks to me more, is what I'll say. So next we can talk about TWICE. So I will say, without a doubt, that their Feel Special album is my favorite of their albums. I've talked about this before. Their Fancy You album was really, really great in the style of music that they did, the kind of change in style that they went for. It was still very much TWICE, but also just a little bit different and more mature, since they are getting to be a bit older. But this album is definitely their best. For the longest time I said that The Story Begins is my favorite TWICE album. Without a doubt I would say that that was my favorite TWICE album, and while I think that album is still really good, it's not 2015 anymore. TWICE have put out a lot of good music over the years, and this release from last year shows just how much they've grown, and I just love everything about this album. Love Foolish is so good. Rainbow is a really good song. Get Loud. Trick It. I love the whole entire track list. At this point, it had been a really long time since I felt that way about a TWICE album. So I can say that this TWICE album is my favorite of theirs, but also I want to highlight another album as well. So their What Is Love album. I feel like I have not given this as much love as it deserves on my channel, because when this came out, I wasn't super into TWICE. I've always considered them a bias group, a group that I love, but the way I felt about them has kind of varied over the years, and at this point that What Is Love came out, I just wasn't as into them as I had been before, so I didn't get the chance to really show this album the love that it deserved. But now, looking back at it, I like this album a lot. This album came out, I don't remember when this album came out, but I just remember that I would listen to this album when I was at work. It was one summer, I don't remember, but I just gradually grew to love this album a lot. And I say that I enjoy their newer kind of style of music more, but What Is Love is kind of a testament to how good their older music is. Not all of their older music is my favorite thing, I'll admit that, but What Is Love is definitely higher up there in what my favorite TWICE albums are. So I grew to love this album a lot, and I feel like I need to show it the love that it deserves, because yeah, I just really like the album a lot, and I don't know if I've talked about it as much as I maybe should have. So next we have, I'll do my last girl group here. So the last one I have to talk about is Red Velvet. To preface this before I tell you what my favorite albums are, Red Velvet, I collect them purely based on musical content, basically. They're one of the few groups that, I do collect only because of their music, and I feel happy doing that, just because I don't normally like to collect groups that I'm not totally invested in the members and stuff like that. So Red Velvet, I'm not super into them like that, but their music is honestly some of the best in this K-pop industry. I think what SM is doing with their music is honestly great. You can say whatever you want about SM as a company. I do think they're kind of shitty sometimes, but also they do great on the music side of things. Yeah, with that said, yeah, so I think This is a hard one, but I think my favorite album of theirs is the Red Festival Day 1. This has changed. This album, I don't know, it's just kind of like everything I love about Red Velvet. Every single song on this album it's just kind of amazing overall. And let's see if I can find the track list right on the side here. Hopefully that's in focus, but like Zimzalabim, I'll admit, not their best title track, but I do like it. Yeah, but Sunny Side Up, one of their best B-sides ever. Milkshake is really fun. Bing Bing, Parade, and LP. Just the album start to finish is so good, and just the style of music that they went for this release was something I really enjoyed. I thought that they kind of experimented with the sound really well. It's just a really fun listen, and I mean, I'm still not tired of the album. So I also want to talk about their Rookie album. So their Rookie album is probably what I would have said was my favorite album before the Reva Festival series came out. It's funny because the Reva Festival series put out one of my favorite and least favorite albums of their discography, but that's kind of besides the point. But like I said, Rookie, that's probably what I said would have been my favorite album, and it was my favorite album of theirs for a long time. I still think this album is really good. It's something about their albums with the like weirder title tracks that not everybody loves, that the album itself is just really good otherwise. So Rookie has my favorite Red Velvet song of all time on it, so that would be Talk to Me. Talk to Me, it's like a pure serotonin boost every time I listen to it. It's just so good. I loved it ever since it came out. That's one song I don't think I'll ever get tired of. But also like Body Talk is an awesome song. Little and Happily Ever After, they're just such good songs, and it's just, I don't know, the album is so good, and I think it's really hard for any Red Velvet albums to kind of compete with these two. I love a lot of Red Velvet's discography, like I've already talked about, otherwise, you know, I wouldn't own it, but these two are like top tier for me. So next we can talk about Hot Shot. So if you know me, you know that I love everything about Hot Shot. Every single one of their songs I love. There's no real use in picking a favorite because every single song of theirs is my favorite. This album in particular, it means a lot to me. This was my first comeback with them as them being an alt. So I was around for their Jelly comeback, but that was when I had first gotten into them. Like, this was my first actual comeback where they were an alt for me. I don't know, this album just means a lot to me. Over time, it has grown to just have this really special place in my heart because, I don't know, listening to it just kind of brings me back. They're not active right now, and I mean, they're in kind of a frustrating situation. I can get really upset about that sometimes when I think about it too much, but listening to this album kind of brings me back, and it just kind of reminds me that even though they're not active, they're still here for me in a way. Like, this album is just really comforting, and it makes my heart really happy. So that's why I would consider it my favorite. So yeah, this album, I mean, like in general, it is their best, but it has a lot more meaning to me than it just being their best album. So next we'll talk about Uptension. So I've always claimed their Burst album, this one, to be my favorite of their albums, and I still stick by that. Their discography to me is like basically perfect, and I love most of their songs, so it's like, I don't know, you'd probably think it'd be harder for me to choose a favorite, but this album in particular, it's just been one of those albums that's always been kind of one I can go back to and enjoy every single time. I just love the way I feel when I go back and listen to it, so that's why it's my favorite. I mean, some of their best songs are on this album, so White Knight is also, you know, one of my favorite of their title tracks. So I could talk forever about how much I love Uptension and their entire discography, but to leave it short, just everything they do is so good. So next I'll talk about NCT. So yeah, this is their Limitless album. This is another one of my like favorite K-pop albums of all time. It's got my favorite NCT song on it, and I don't know, I just have a lot of love for this album. So my favorite song on this album and my favorite NCT song in general is Baby Don't Like It. That song has always been my favorite. Like, it's just so good. As time has gone on, I've somehow just loved it even more. But also I've always really loved Back to You, because I think when this album came out, I was more Yuta biased. These days I'm Taeyong biased. Back to You was one of my favorites because of his part in the song. I've always just thought it's incredibly beautiful, and I love his voice. But yeah, like Heartbreaker on this album is also so good. Limitless is another really good title track of theirs. Yeah, so this album is really good. It's definitely a classic. Okay, so next we can talk about We in the Zone. So when We in the Zone debuted, I did not expect to like them as much as I do. Shihyun is my boy, and I've been supporting him for the longest time. So of course I wanted to support this group, but I didn't expect to love their music as much as I do. This album in particular, I think my favorite song on this album is definitely Love Love Love. So my favorite thing that Shihyun has been a part of is the Unit album that he was a part of in 2017. That's like some of my favorite music. Like the music on that album is really good, and Love 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 is kind of reminiscent of that sound, so that's probably why it's my favorite. But also Better and Bet On Me are so good, and In the Rain, it's just a sweet little song and I love it. Yeah, this album is really good. We in the Zone is one group that if you have not checked them out, I highly suggest that you do, because they're very talented boys and this album is really good. I mean, their second album that they put out end of last year was really good too, but this one is better in my opinion. So next we have CIX. So this is their first mini album, Hello Stranger. I find it hard to choose between their two albums which one is my favorite, but I ultimately chose this one because if we take a look at the track list, I don't know how well you can see that just because of the plastic, but What You Wanted is an amazing song. Movie Star is the better of their two title tracks. I was obsessed with that song for the longest time last year. Like It That Way is also so good. They just have some really good songs in their discography, and I think most of them are on this album. Like, I like their other album a lot. My favorite song of theirs is on that album. That's Rewind. I love Rewind. This album just has more songs that I'm more enthusiastic about. So next we'll talk about Colin Daniel. So this is his second mini album, Cyan. Or no, it's his first mini album. Anyways, I like this album definitely a lot more than I expected to. I liked his first album, but I didn't end up liking it as much as I had anticipated I would, but I do like this one a lot more. I think this title track, To You, it's just really great. It fits Daniel's kind of style and aesthetic really well. Like, it's just a song that I feel like fits him, and it is him, if that makes sense. The B-sides on this album are really good too. Jealous is so good. I've been listening to that one a lot. Interview is really good too. The songs from his digital single that he put on this album as well, they're really good, and this album overall is just a lot more of what I wanted from Daniel, and it's a lot more of what I like from him, so I'm really happy about that, and I really like this album. So next I'll talk about 100%. So this is their Time Leap album, and this one came out back in 2016. So the reason this album is my favorite is just because Better Day is like one of my favorite K-pop songs ever. I love that song so much. It's what got me into 100%, and I've always held so much love for it. I didn't actually listen to the whole album until quite a while after Better Day came out, but I do think that this whole album is really good. I honestly don't have much to say about it in general, but other than like an endless amount of praise for Better Day and like saying that the B-sides are really good, that's kind of that. But if you haven't listened to this album, I highly recommend you do. 100% is a really great group. So next is JBJ95, and my favorite album of theirs is Awake. So this album came out last year, and it was one of my favorite albums of last year. This album encompasses everything I love about JBJ95. And I kind of thought that Kenta and Sangyoon were a weird duo at start. Not like a weird duo, but like not kind of a duo you would expect, but I love them together. I love the music that they are making. I especially love this kind of music that they're making from this album. Their other albums are good, but they're quite a few steps down from this one. I think this one is just kind of like God tier and nothing can touch it. So Who I Am is one of their best songs. So Pentagon, my favorite album of theirs is Genius. When it comes to Pentagon, it's hard to choose a favorite album because I would say that their first mini album, their self-titled, is a really good one. It's also probably a close second. So I don't know, like my favorite Pentagon song is Organic Song, and that is on their first mini album. That's a reason why I would consider their first album one of my favorites. But this one I think it's better. This album got me a lot more interested in Pentagon. It got me a lot more excited about Pentagon for sure. The title track of this album isn't my favorite of theirs, but like Lost Paradise is one of my favorites. I've always really loved Pentagon's rap line, Hyojung included. I wouldn't say that those songs tend to be my favorite because they don't really. I had really loved Organic Song from their first album, like I already said, but then it was a really long time before I really liked another rap unit song, and then they put out this one, Lost Paradise, and my admiration for them kind of came back. Like I really love Pentagon's rap line a lot. Also, Spring Snow is another one of my favorite Pentagon songs. I just really love the vibe of that song. I mean, like, first of all, the genre they went for with that song is like my favorite thing ever, because just in general I really like that sound. Doesn't matter what language is being sung. I've always just really loved that song a lot. It's really uplifting and it makes my heart feel very full and very happy. So that song is one of my favorites of theirs. So also Alien is good too. And I mean, of course, like the Ballad Unit song is really good just because Pentagon, their like vocal line is also like incredible. But also Round 1 is really, really fun too. So next we can talk about New East. So this is their Happily Ever After album. I love this album so much. I feel like I've talked about it a lot over the past year just because, I mean, it's really that good. My favorite album before this one was Q Is. So this one it's kind of just insane how good it is. New East are on another level with just the quality of their music that they're putting out, so I'll keep this one short, but it truly is such a good album. Alright, next we'll talk about Impact, and this is actually their most recent album, their first mini album actually. They finally got a mini album after 4 years, but this album is just, it's so good. It's only been out maybe a couple weeks at most, but it's really, really good. You can't really expect anything less from Impact just because their music is so good. But my favorite song on this album is Wi-Fi. It makes me like fall in love with Eunjae every time I listen to it just because, first of all, I love his voice. You can hear like his musical influences on the song too, and it's just so good and it makes me love him so much just because he had so much influence on the song. So they have some more like ballady songs on the album, which of course, I mean, they do great with ballads. Their vocals are like no joke. So the title track Lie is, I mean, this happens every time Impact puts out a new song, but it's like it instantly becomes like my favorite thing ever, and that's why I love Impact so much, just because they can do no wrong basically. Alright, so we can end this off on some more NCT units. So next we can talk about Wavy. This is their Take Over the Moon album. Like, yeah, this is my favorite album of theirs just because their first mini album didn't really have much new content on it. It just had, I mean, it did have some new songs on it, but it just didn't have as much new content as this one. But I really do love this album. Like every single song is so good. I think Yeah 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 is my favorite. It's hard to say that because Love Talk is really good. I think Yeah 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 is better. Yeah, like the whole album is really good. I watched their Beyond Live not too long ago and I really enjoyed hearing all of these songs. So last album we will talk about is NCT Dreams Reload, and this is a very recent release. It came out within the last couple of weeks, and this album just kind of blew all of their other albums out of the water. It's so good. I never really have low expectations for NCT releases just because, like I talked about before, the music that SM puts out is always good. It's not like anything you really have to question. But I did not expect the B-sides on this album to be so good. So Quiet Down is probably my favorite NCT Dream B-side. It's so good. And then Love Again is so good. 7 Days is really good too. Puzzle Piece is like a really sweet song. I get in my feelings when I listen to that song. It's really sweet. Okay, yeah, so that was everything for this video. This actually took a lot longer to film than I expected it would, but that's okay. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video.